Last week marked a really special milestone in my life. I finally bought a brand new car for myself. Honestly, it still feels surreal to say that out loud. I'm not trying to show off or anything, but this moment has been in the making for a very long time. Ever since I graduated from college, I've been driving the same old secondhand car that my parents gave me. It wasn't fancy, far from it actually, but it got me where I needed to go. That car was with me through everything: my first job, late night drives to clear my head, countless road trips with friends, breakdowns, and everything in between. Back when I first started working at my company, my priorities were pretty clear. I wasn't chasing flashy things or spending money on luxuries. I was focused on building a stable foundation. A big part of that meant being responsible with my finances, saving for my own future, but also sending money back home to support my parents. They had sacrificed so much for me, and it was important to me that I give back, even if it meant tightening my own belt for a while. When I met my first wife, Diana, she came into my life like a light. We were genuinely happy. We built a life together, made plans for the future, leaned on each other through the usual ups and downs. But life, as it often does, threw us a devastating curveball. Diana was diagnosed with cancer, and what followed was a long, painful journey, physically, emotionally, and financially. Every ounce of our savings, everything we had carefully put aside, went into trying to fight that disease. The treatments, hospital stays, medications, it all added up. But none of that mattered more than trying to keep her with me, to give her every possible chance. Sadly, despite everything we did, Diana passed away 4 years ago. That loss broke me in ways I can't even fully describe, and for a long time I couldn't even think about moving forward. I kept to myself, buried in work and routine, not really living, just existing. Then Sheila came into my life. She had been a single mother for as long as her son, Max, had been alive. Her ex had walked away from the responsibility of fatherhood without a second thought, leaving her to raise Max on her own. She juggled multiple jobs just to keep the lights on and food on the table. When we first went out on a date, I didn't expect much, but she surprised me. Sheila was effortlessly charming. She never pushed me to open up, but somehow I found myself telling her about Diana, about the pain and the years I'd spent feeling like a shell of myself. And she listened and really understood. As we spent more time together, I got to know her son, Max. He was a good kid, curious, kind-hearted. Slowly, the idea that the three of us could actually be a family didn't feel so far-fetched. It began to feel natural for us. So after 2 years of dating, I proposed to Sheila and she said yes. Not long after, we got married, and since then, Sheila and Max have been living with me at this house. Now, here's the thing. What I didn't see coming was how much things would change after Sheila and I got married. Before the wedding, she seemed so caring and appreciative, but after the wedding, it's like a switch flipped. Suddenly, all she cared about is appearances, bragging to her friends about how much money I have in my bank account, name dropping our latest vacation destination, or showing off her new purchases like trophies. She demands that I take her on 4 to 5 exotic vacations a year. Now, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy going on vacations with her. I love making memories, experiencing new places together and seeing her genuinely happy. But 5 exotic vacations a year? It's exhausting. It's like there's this constant pressure to perform, to provide, to fund a lifestyle that I never signed up for. What makes it even harder is that when we're on these trips, I can't fully unplug from work. I have a demanding job, and whether I'm in Bali or Barcelona, sometimes I need to take calls or check in on urgent matters. That's what keeps all of this going in the first place. But instead of understanding that, she gets upset and says I don't care and that I'm not present, that I'm ruining our time together. It's frustrating because I feel like I'm being pulled in opposite directions. On one hand, I'm working hard to give us these experiences she keeps asking for. On the other, I'm being told I'm not doing enough emotionally, even when I'm stretched thin trying to balance it all. As if things haven't already been strained, another major point of conflict between Sheila and me has been about money, specifically my decision to continue supporting my parents. Since the very beginning of my career, it's been a point of pride and love for me to send money home. My parents aren't wealthy. They have worked hard their whole lives and never asked for much. The least I can do, after all they've given me, is make sure they're comfortable in their later years. But Sheila doesn't see it that way. She put up a real fight when she found out I was still sending money to them. She said things like, they're old, they've lived their lives, they don't need your money, they can manage on their own. And when I stood firm, refusing to cut off support to my parents, she suddenly shifted tactics. She said, fine, then you should start sending money to my parents too. It's only fair. I was taken aback. At first, I thought it was just a heated reaction, but just a few hours later after our argument, I got calls from her mother, her father, even her brother, all making their case, telling me how it's only fair to send them money too, and how I am so successful so I can afford it. And just like that, I have become financially responsible for not just my own parents, but hers as well. It wasn't something we discussed and agreed on as a couple. It was something I was pushed into out of guilt and pressure. Max also, who was previously friendly to me, has also changed color. The warmth has slowly disappeared, replaced by an attitude that I can only describe as entitled. These days, all Max seems to care about is what I can buy him, whether it's the latest Xbox, a stack of new games, high-end headphones, or whatever new gadget is trending on social media. If I say no or even hesitate, he throws a full-blown tantrum. I've seen kids get upset, sure, but this is something else entirely. It's like saying no to him is treated as a betrayal. And then inevitably, Sheila steps in, not to calm things down, but to escalate the situation. She'll look at me with this combination of disappointment and anger and say things like, he deserves this. Do you know what he's been through? His father abandoned him. He grew up with nothing. As if that justifies handing him everything on a silver platter now. As if I should somehow make up for the damage someone else caused, financially, emotionally, constantly. I get it. He's been through a lot. I've never once denied that, and I don't mind giving him nice things when I can, when it makes sense, when it comes from a place of love and not expectation. But what I can't accept is being made to feel like a failure because I won't play the role of an open wallet. It's hard because I still care about Max. I still remember the kid who smiled at me and loved spending time with me and his mom, but now, more and more, I feel like I'm not seen as a father figure or even a person. I'm just the guy who pays for everything, and when I don't, I'm the bad guy. Now, coming to the recent incident after I bought my new car back home, Max, instead of showing excitement or congratulating me, made a face and said, "That car looks too young for you." I looked surprised and explained to him how this has always been my dream car. Then he laughed and kept throwing in these little digs, saying I would look funny driving it, that I am an old guy trying to act cool. It didn't stop there. He kept insinuating more and more directly that maybe he should have the car instead. He didn't say it outright at first, but it was clear what he was getting at. Eventually, he just came out with it. "Why don't you just give the car to me?" I was stunned. Not because he wanted it. He's a teenager. Of course he wants a car. But because of the way he expected it, as if he was owed it. I stayed calm and told him plainly I wasn't comfortable giving him a car, especially not an expensive one like this. I explained that when I wanted a car, I worked, I saved, I waited. I told him that if he really wanted a car, he should at least consider getting a part-time job and start saving up. I would definitely help with the rest of the money, but first I needed to see that he could be responsible and mature. But Max wasn't interested in any of that. He shrugged and said, "Why would I get a job and save up when it's easier to just get a car from you for free?" That moment hit me hard. There was no shame or sense of effort or appreciation. This was just raw entitlement, as if my hard work existed purely to serve his wants. I don't know what stung more, the request itself or the complete absence of respect behind it. Later, the conversation that followed with Sheila only added salt to the wound. I had hoped, maybe naively, that she'd understand where I was coming from, that she would recognize what her son was slowly turning into, that maybe she would understand what this car meant to me, not just as a vehicle, but as a symbol of years of struggle, sacrifice, and resilience. But instead of support, she agreed with her son. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you don't want to give this car to Max, then you should have brought something cheaper. This is a waste of money." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. Here I was, finally doing something meaningful for myself after years of giving everything to everyone else, and suddenly it was a frivolous decision in her eyes. Not a milestone, not a reward, just a waste. She actually continued to say, "I think you should give this car to my son. It will mean more to him than it does for you." I tried to stay calm. I explained again that Max was a teenager, he hadn't worked for it, hadn't earned it, and that handing it over would send the exact wrong message, that rewards come without responsibility. But Sheila wasn't hearing any of it. In fact, she started accusing me of making Max feel left out, that by not giving him the car, I was somehow making him feel unloved or less important. I made it clear to her that I've never treated Max like anything less than family. I've provided for him, I've supported him. I've tried to be a constant in his life when his biological father chose not to be. But now I was being framed as the villain for having the audacity to want to keep my own car. Our argument escalated, and the final blow was when Sheila, in the middle of all this, threatened to go behind my back. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "If you won't give my son your car, I'll just take your card and buy him the same one." Just like that. No shame, no apology, no conversation about boundaries or respect, just a threat. As if my money, my decisions, my feelings meant absolutely nothing to her and her son. Ever since then, I feel like I'm invisible in this family, like no one cares about me. I'm just a wallet for everyone. It's gotten to a point where I don't even feel like I'm living with a partner anymore. I feel like I'm living under pressure, under expectations, under constant emotional and financial obligation. And now, even something as personal and meaningful as a car, a symbol of my journey, has become just another battleground. I am at a loss for words and need help. So Reddit, AITA for not giving up my car to Max? Update 1. Hey everyone. First off, thank you for the overwhelming support, advice, and even the hard truths many of you have shared with me. I didn't expect my story to resonate with so many people, and reading through your comments has been both validating and sobering. A few of you asked some very good and honestly difficult questions, and I thought I'd take a moment to answer them and give a bit more insight. 1. Why did you marry Sheila if there were already red flags? The truth is, at the time, there weren't many. Or maybe I just didn't want to see them. After Diana passed, I was in a very dark place. Sheila came into my life when I was grieving and vulnerable, and she offered comfort, companionship, and empathy that I really needed. We bonded over shared pain, and for a while it felt real, grounding. Looking back, I think I confused her understanding of my grief for emotional maturity. I wanted a second chance at love and family, and I thought maybe I'd found it. But I also recognize now that maybe I rushed into something I needed instead of something that was right. 2. Why aren't you setting harder boundaries? I spent most of my life trying to be the responsible one, the provider, the steady hand, the person people can lean on. And I think somewhere along the way, I seem to have forgotten how to say no without guilt, especially when it comes to Sheila and Max. I have felt like saying no would make me heartless. But I'm learning now that boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. And I've started reflecting on how often I've sacrificed my own peace just to keep others comfortable. That has to change. 3. Are you afraid of confronting Sheila? Yes. Every time I try to bring up something serious, it turns into an argument. Or worse, I'm manipulated into feeling like I'm the one being selfish. She's sharp with her words, and she knows exactly where to press. And with Max being thrown into the middle of it, it always becomes a guilt trip about how I'm not doing enough for a boy who's already been let down. It's exhausting. I often find myself backing down just to avoid the storm. But I'm reaching the point where I realize avoiding the storm is costing me my own mental health. For a bit more context, Max doesn't even know how to drive a car yet. Yes, you read that right. He wants my car, not just a car, but mine, even though he has zero driving experience. 4. Do you have a prenup? Yes, thank God. That's one of the few things I got right. I had a prenup drawn up before we got married, mostly because I had already experienced the emotional and financial devastation of losing a spouse, and I wanted to protect myself if things ever went sideways again. At the time, I hoped I'd never need it. Now I'm grateful I had the foresight. Update 2. It's been a few days since my last update. I took everybody's advice and had a conversation with Sheila. I told Sheila firmly, but also calmly as I could, that she had no right to threaten to misuse my money, and certainly not something she can weaponize in order to spoil her son. I told her if she genuinely believed Max deserved a car, then he needed to start acting like someone who was ready to earn it. I said, let him get his license first. Let him learn how to drive. Let him show he's responsible. Then we can maybe talk about getting him a car. Sheila tried to argue, but I shut her down. I reminded her that Max hasn't done a single thing to demonstrate any kind of maturity. He doesn't have a job, doesn't contribute to the household in any way. He's not saving, not planning, not preparing for anything. His daily routine consists of sitting in front of a screen, playing violent video games for hours on end. That's it. That's what his life looks like right now. Most days he doesn't even show up for school. When he does, he gets written up or caught sleeping through class. And yet somehow Sheila still treats him like a prince. No consequences, no push for discipline or structure. No attempt to guide him into becoming a responsible young man. She just turns a blind eye, excuses everything, and doubles down on the idea that he deserves more because his biological father failed him. I also told her I completely understand that she feels guilty about Max not having his biological father, but what she's doing with him isn't parenting, it's enabling. Every time I try to step in just to introduce some basic expectations, some standards, I end up as the bad guy, the one who's too strict or too harsh, just for asking a 17-year-old to show a little effort or accountability. Sheila was taken aback for a moment after all this. I guess she wasn't prepared for me to say the truth to her face. Initially, she did agree that Max needs to go to a driving school, but she also argued that I was being too strict, that I was putting too many rules on her son. She started accusing me of trying to control him, of punishing him when he was just a teenager, and she gave me that tired old line, boys will be boys, as if laziness, entitlement, and complete lack of accountability are just things I'm supposed to overlook because he's a boy. As if sulking is a valid reason to give someone a $40,000 car. She kept insisting that Max deserves nice things in his life, not because he's earned them, but simply because he exists, because he's had a rough past, and because I have the money to give him what he wants. And when I again said no, that I deserve to enjoy the car I worked for, that I wasn't going to hand it over to someone who hadn't earned it. She said I was being selfish. Let that sink in for a moment. Selfish. After everything I've done for her and her son, after everything I've provided, after everything I've sacrificed, she has the audacity to call me selfish for saying no to something I bought for myself with my own money after years of putting everyone else first. Despite this, I refused to back down and told her that if she was so set on buying her son a car, then she could get it with her own money or ask her family to pay for it. But that I wasn't going to give in to their demands. This is when my wife looked me straight in the eye and said, "Oh, you don't want to buy a car for my son? Fine. Maybe we shouldn't be together then. Maybe we need to get a divorce because you won't support my son and I don't want to be with a deadbeat partner like you anymore." I was speechless. I couldn't believe that she said all those hurtful words to me. She wanted a divorce because I wouldn't hand over my car to a teenager who plays video games all day, doesn't go to school, because I dared to have boundaries, because I said that respect has to go both ways. Can you believe that? That threat told me more than any argument ever could. It showed me that in her eyes, my worth is tied to what I give, not who I am. That she's willing to walk away, not over any abuse or betrayal or neglect, but because I wouldn't spoil her son. Ever since then, she has been sleeping in the guest room and refuses to talk to me. Update 3. Guys, it's just getting worse. I didn't think things could sink lower than where they were a few days ago, but last night, Max and I got into a massive fight. I caught him sneaking into my private workroom, going through my wallet, trying to steal my card. For context, this isn't new. He's done this before more than once. The reason I even started hiding my card in the first place in the house was because in the past, he stole my card and made multiple charges on OnlyFans and other explicit sites. A teenager using my money for that. It's not just inappropriate, it's disgusting. This time, when I caught him red-handed and confronted him about it, he started screaming at me for not letting him use my card, as if I was the one who did something wrong. He refused to apologize. He didn't even pretend to be sorry about getting caught. Instead, he yelled for his mom like a child, calling for backup. And right on cue, Sheila came rushing in like I was the villain in all this. Even when I told her what her son was trying to do, she went straight into defense mode. His defense, of course. She said, "He only had to do that because you never give him your card freely. What do you expect? He's just a boy and he's doing what any boy would do at his age." Sheila also said I was overreacting and invading Max's privacy by going through what he did with my own money. She argued that this is what most boys do at his age and that he wasn't doing anything illegal anyways. When I calmly tried to explain to her again that he's still a child, that he needs discipline, structure, and consequences for his actions, not just handouts and blind support, she lost it. She started shouting at me, saying I had no right to talk about her son like that he wasn't the problem, I was, that I was too harsh, too controlling, too selfish. She made it sound like I was some sort of monster for not enabling theft, for setting basic boundaries, and for expecting accountability. I was starting to get really pissed and made it clear to both of them that Max couldn't use my card ever again, not for anything. I couldn't trust that boy ever again. And this is when Sheila threatened to call Child Protective Services on me. Yeah, CPS. Sheila actually said, "If you keep treating my son like a criminal, don't be surprised if CPS shows up at our door." I was floored. I didn't even know how to respond. I stood there thinking, are they serious? Are they actually willing to make a false report and to ruin my reputation just to punish me for holding their son accountable? She continued to say that she will tell CPS that I was misbehaving with her son, that if I didn't stop mistreating Max, she'd go through with it. And if that wasn't horrifying enough, Max joined in. With a smirk on his face, he said, I'll lie to them and say you hit me or something. They'll believe me over you. You'll definitely get arrested. I just stood there in shock. I kept my mouth shut to avoid escalating the situation further. But inside, something snapped. I have now come to realize that this isn't just dysfunction or conflict anymore. This is abuse. This is me being trapped in a situation where even doing the right thing puts me at risk. I've tried patience, I've tried compassion, I've tried to be a father figure, a provider, a husband, and now I'm being threatened with false accusations and legal consequences just for refusing to give up my own integrity. I don't know what my next step is yet, but I know I need to get out of this before it breaks me completely. I need to leave this toxic marriage before things get worse for me. Sheila and Max can do anything to get what they want, and I am done with their antics. Update 4. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. I finally made a decision. I am separating from Sheila. These past 2 weeks have been the most emotionally and mentally demanding of my life, but also, strangely, the clearest I've felt in a long time. There was no longer any doubt, no back and forth in my head, just certainty. I needed to end this for my sanity, for my safety, for my future. I've spoken to lawyers, laid everything out, and thankfully my prenup is ironclad, bulletproof. I made sure of that years ago, and I thank my past self every single day for having that foresight. As long as I follow the right steps, Sheila doesn't get to take what she hasn't earned. But that wasn't the only thing on my mind. I've also been reorganizing my assets, moving what I can legally, protecting what's mine, locking down finances, updating passwords, canceling shared cards, securing important documents. I've also been waiting to hand Sheila divorce papers because if I handed her those papers inside the house, I know exactly what would happen. She'd scream. Max would escalate. They'd corner me, emotionally blackmail me, maybe even call the police or CPS and try to flip the script. That's the kind of people I'm dealing with. They've already threatened it once. I have no doubt they do it again. So I have been waiting and planning. Today, Sheila took Max to her cousin's place for lunch. She asked me to come along. Casually, like everything between us was still perfectly normal. Like she hadn't threatened me with CPS and like her son hadn't tried to steal from me again. Like we were still the happy family she pretends we are when she's around other people. I saw through it immediately. I knew why she wanted me there. It wasn't just for a family lunch. It was so her cousins could get a chance to work on me too. Her family has a long track record of asking for money at these so-called family lunches, so I refused. I made up a polite excuse and stayed at home. After they left the house, I used the window of time to quietly pack up some of their belongings and leave them on the porch. I placed the divorce papers with them. No more conversations, no more emotional traps. When they came back and saw their things outside, it didn't take long for the storm to start. Sheila started screaming. Max started banging on my door to let them in, but then I had already changed the lock so they couldn't come in no matter what. I stood behind the door, calm, and said the words to Sheila I had rehearsed so many times in my head. I'm done. I'm leaving you. Take your things. Take the divorce papers and leave. You and your pathetic son are no longer welcome on my property. Sheila and Max stood outside, stunned out. They started to loudly curse me out. They said things to me that I can't even repeat here. When Sheila saw that their outburst wasn't working, she quickly shifted gears and she started crying, begging me to talk to her so we can work things out. She said I was being unreasonable for no reason and that I didn't care about her or Max. Max, meanwhile, stood behind her, continuing to spew every profanity he could think of, like some angry child whose favorite toy had been taken away. Eventually, I told them that if they continued to stand on my porch and abuse me, I would call the police on them if they didn't leave. I guess this is when the reality finally sank in. They picked up their things, angry, shocked, flailing for control, and walked away. It was satisfying to watch them leave my house. Feeling defeated, it's finally quiet and peaceful in the house. I feel safe and free. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.